What up, world? We're 18 back at it again. Welcome back to the video. This is part 2 of my top 10 90s villains list. If you saw part 1, you already know what we're diving into. Some of the most cold-blooded, iconic, and unforgettable villains of the 90s. Now it's time to level it up. These next 5 aren't just bad guys, they're nightmare-fueled culture shakers and legends in their own right. From supernatural slashers to cold, calculated masterminds, this is the real hall of villainy. Let's get into the top 5 greatest movie villains of the 90s, and trust me, you won't see number 1 the same way ever again. At number 5, we got a villain who didn't talk much, but didn't have to. Cold, calculated, and made of liquid metal. He wasn't just a machine, he was a nightmare you couldn't run from. This is T-1000. T-1000, played by Robert Patrick, is the kind of villain that rewrote the playbook. He's silent, relentless, and visually terrifying. Unlike the original Terminator, this model isn't just a tank. It's a shape-shifting assassin made of liquid metal. There's something scarier about a villain who shows no rage, no emotion, just one goal: destroy. In every scene he's in, he has pressure, he doesn't slow down, he doesn't get distracted, he just keeps coming. Robert Patrick's deadpan performance is perfection. He made cool, calm, and killer iconic. Even over 30 years later, filmmakers are still chasing that energy. T-1000 is a reason kids in the 90s feared mirrors, cops, and puddles. He was fantastic. Every time he was on screen, he was amazing. You wanted to see more. What's good about this actually is that he wasn't on screen a lot of the time. There was a lot of scenes where it was just Arnold and the kid talking, a lot of scenes without him, but he was always lurking or whatever. He was always around, and every time he came on scene, he was just magnetic. The camera was drawn to him, and you were drawn to him, trying to see what he's gonna do, who he's gonna turn into. I thought his portrayal was excellent, one of the best villains of the 90s, and that's why he's number 5 in my opinion. At number 4, say his name 5 times in the mirror and it's already too late. He wasn't just a horror villain, he was a tragic legend. With a hook for a hand and pain in his eyes, this is the haunting presence of Candyman. Candyman wasn't just a slasher villain, he was a horror statement. Played hauntingly by Tony Todd. Candyman's presence was eerie, poetic, and deeply tragic. His backstory: a black man, artist, brutally murdered for falling in love with a white woman, and now he lives on as a ghost of racial trauma and revenge. Tony Todd's voice alone was enough to raise goosebumps.
Your death will be a tale to frighten children, to make lovers cling closer in their rapture. Come with me and be immortal.
Calm, seductive, and filled with sorrow. It was like he wasn't just trying to kill you, he wanted you to understand his pain first. This wasn't your typical horror flick. Candyman brought intellect and fear together, challenging stereotypes while delivering nightmare fuel. He was horror with a purpose, and he's still one of the most unique villains the genre has ever seen. R.I.P. Tony Todd. This movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, especially because it was filmed in Chicago. The Robert Taylor Holmes Cabrini Green projects, which isn't around today, but growing up, we would pass it or whatever, and it's looked like I never lived in the projects. We was poor, but we never lived in the projects. And passing that place, it was like a fucking horror film in itself. But he made growing up in Chicago and seeing that place seem like it was a fucking nightmare. He was super scary. Tony Todd as a black villain too was amazing. He was definitely one of the scariest things in my childhood. Even today, when he was in the last Final Destination movie, he's scary. And in all those movies, every time I saw him like throughout my years, I'm like, this motherfucker is super scary. And sad that he died. I think he died of cancer this year, I think it was. But definitely a great villain. Definitely a great black villain. Definitely one of the villains that I was totally afraid of growing up. And then we would play the game in school where you talk in the mirror, say Candyman 5 times. I never said it because I was fucking terrified. But that's what makes a great villain. It makes you scared as a kid and even as an adult. Not scared, but he's still one of those villains that were one of those people that I would see on TV and be like, I don't want to watch nothing he's talking about because he's still scary to me. Number 3 is the villain you never saw coming until it was too late. Quiet, calm, absolutely terrifying. John Doe didn't just commit crimes, he delivered a message. He made you watch. This is evil with a plan. So John Doe wasn't loud, flashy, or unhinged. He was calm, collected, and meticulous. And somehow that made him even more terrifying. Played by Kevin Spacey, John Doe is the killer behind the 7 deadly sin murders in Seven. And when we finally meet him, he's already won. He doesn't fight the cops, he delivers himself, because in his mind, justice is already done. The twisted genius of this villain is that he's not insane. He's disturbingly rational, and he forces everyone, especially Detective Mills, to experience his ideology in the most devastating way possible. John Doe is the reason that ending still shocks people today. The villain wins, not with weapons, but with philosophy. John Doe was amazing. I love this movie Seven. First of all, I did a video on it if you want to watch that. But John Doe as a villain is amazing. He wasn't one of those loud mouths. You never knew what he was doing. He didn't fucking give away his plan. And everything he did was in determination of his end goal to complete the 7 deadly sins. And he, even though he dies at the end, that was his plan too. He knew he was gonna die. He wanted to have the 7 deadly sins. And he gets the guy to do what he needs him to do at the end of the movie.
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
Oh, what's in the box? Not till you give me the
What's
gun.
in the fucking box? It's amazing role played by Kevin Spacey. His role was unbelievable. He was great in his role. And one of my top 5 villains of all time in the 90s. He is amazing. Probably one of my top 5 villains ever. And especially in the end when he turns himself in. And it was all with a plan. That shit was fucking... When I saw it for the first time, I was like, wow, this is an amazing movie. At number 2, we step away from the shadows and into the streets. Nino Brown wasn't a monster. He was a businessman, a kingpin, and a cold-hearted leader with charm and ruthlessness. He didn't just run the city, he was the city. Nino Brown, brought to life by Wesley Snipes, was more than a villain. He was a movement. Charismatic, stylish, and ruthless. He controlled the streets like a CEO. He wasn't hiding in the shadows, he was flossing in the open. Snipes played him with electric coolness, delivering quotable lines while shooting you in the back. Nino was layered, part villain, part victim of his environment, and fully aware of his power. His impact went beyond movies. In the 90s, Nino Brown was the face of cinematic black crime bosses. Every villain who came after borrowed a little of Nino's DNA. And even though he was the bad guy, people respected the hustle, and that's truly rare. So Nino Brown was a piece of shit. He was all those things that I said, but he was the worst of the worst. He used a little girl as his shield to not get shot. A little girl at a wedding. He fucking stole his brother's girl. He fucking he killed his own brother at the end of the movie. Almost at the end of the movie.
What we got? Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. Oh!
He shot a woman just walking down the street for a gang initiation. He is the lowest of the low in terms of villains, and he would do anything to survive, and he would do anything to make his empire. He took over a whole project and turned the people into prisoners in their own homes.
Now look, you are gonna give up those apartments.
Yes,
And
sir.
you are gonna turn over control of the corner to the brothers.
Yes.
This motherfucker did everything in the greatness of himself. And he was by far the leader of the group. And he showed him. He showed everybody. Everybody was afraid of him. He was, and this is Wesley Snipes at his peak. He was fucking fantastic in this movie. He was doing all the movies at the time. And I thought this was one of his greatest roles, in my opinion. And that's why he's my number 2. And at number 1, the clown that scared an entire generation, Pennywise. Wasn't just creepy, he was fear in the purest form. Whether you met him in the sewer or in your dreams, he made sure you never looked at clowns the same again. Let's talk trauma. Pennywise, played in the 1990s miniseries by Tim Curry, wasn't just a villain. He was a childhood fear incarnate. A demonic entity disguised as a clown, targeting children with the worst nightmares, and he smiled the whole time. Tim Curry didn't need flashy effects, just his voice, a sinister grin, and that stare that said, "I already own your soul." The way he played Pennywise was unforgettable. Funny one second, demonic the next. The reason Pennywise tops this list is simple. No one who saw it in the 90s forgot it. He made a whole generation afraid of balloons, storm drains, and even the circus. That's legendary horror villain status. Pennywise was terrifying. Especially growing up in Chicago when you have Bozo the Clown who's like super funny, he loves kids or whatever. Seeing Pennywise in a miniseries and seeing how he fucking killed kids, that shit was fucking insane. I loved his whole aspect. I love Tim Curry was amazing in this movie. I think this is a movie of his career, in my opinion. I've seen him in other stuff, but this is the one movie that I can always remember Tim Curry playing in. He was excellent in this movie as a clown. He was scary as fuck. The different scenes in the movie was amazing. I also liked the second iteration of the It movies, the newer versions. I thought the kid actors were excellent. I thought the Skarsgård guy played the role. He made it his own. He was totally different from Tim Curry, but you can see some of the similarities also. I was definitely a fan of the It movies. I love this whole lore. I love Stephen King, first of all. I like his movies and his books or whatever. But Tim Curry as Pennywise was a horror in my childhood. It was so scary. And that's why he's my number 1 villain of the 90s. There you have it. 5 villains who defined fear, style, and darkness in the 1990s. From cold machines with tragic ghosts to street kings and demonic clowns, these characters did more than entertain. They stuck with us. Which one still lives rent-free in your nightmares, and who do we miss? Drop the top 5, your top villains below, and let's keep the countdown going. So, my first video was the bottom 5. I'll have the link in the comments or whatever. Make sure you watch that video if you haven't seen it. Thank you guys for watching. I truly appreciate you guys for giving me a couple minutes of your time. It could have been on anybody else's channel and you decided to watch mine, so thank you. There's only 24 hours in the day and you gave me a couple minutes, so I appreciate that. Time is very valuable, so I will not take your time for granted. That's gonna be it. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. I'll get at y'all on the next one. Later. Have a good one.